To solve this problem, I know that we need to do 2 1/4 times 2 1/2, and we'll do that using an area model. Now, first I need to think about how to set up my area model. Here I know I have 2 1/4, which means in order to represent that in the area model, I will need 3 holes, because I have 2 holes and then I have part of a third hole with the 1/4. And the same is true for 2 1/2. I have 2 holes and then part of another hole. So I'll start by just making a 3 by 3 array. Okay. So now I have the 3 by 3 array set up, and now I can go ahead and begin to model. So first I know I have 2 1/4. So these two will be the holes, so I know I can write that I have 2. And then in this last section is where I would model the 1/4. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and split the model in this last hole here into fourths. And I'll do that all the way down, so that when we're multiplying, this is representing 1/4 times whatever we're multiplying by there. So I can show now that here's where I'll represent the 1/4. And then I know that I'm multiplying that by 2 1/2. So again, here will be the 2 holes. And then here's where I will show 1/2. So I'll need to just split the model for this hole in half, going straight across. And so now in order to find the product, we really need to think about the amount that we are actually referring to here. We're not using this entire 3 by 3 array. That would mean we were multiplying 3 times 3, and the answer would be 9. We're really looking for 2 1/4 times 2 1/2. And so sometimes people find it helpful to box in that amount that we're referring to. So you could go over it with another color. So 2 1/2 times 2 1/4. So I'm just going to box that in. I went to 2 and then over to the 4th, and then 2 and down to one of these halves. And you may find it helpful as well to just shade in the amount that we're referring to then once you've done that. So I'm going to shade that in so that we can really clearly see what we're working with. So what we have here first, we have, remember each box that's outlined in black represents 1 hole. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 holes right here, which makes sense because that's where I would multiply 2 times 2, which is 4. Now when I look over here, remember each of these holes was split into 4 equal parts. So I know that's what shaded in orange represents 1/4, and I have that twice. So this part here is 2/4, the 2 of those together. And then if I come and look down here, I have 2 parts of these holes, and each of those is a half. So I have 1/2 here, because it's half of this hole that was here. And then I have 1/2 here. So that's 2 halves, which we know is equal to 1 hole. So there's a hole there. And that does make sense. That's where we did 1/2 times 2. We have 1/2 twice. And then the part that can sometimes be tricky is to figure out what is this little amount that's still shaded in here in this section. And what we can do to figure that out is remember that what we have outlined in black represents 1 hole on this array, and this hole has been split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts, and that's because it is where we are multiplying 1/2 times 1/4. So it's been split into 8 parts, and we have just one of those 8 parts shaded in. So we know that that means that this is 1/8 right there. And so now that we have all of the partial products, it would just be time for us to add. So I will list over here, we have 4 plus 1 hole plus 2/4 plus 1/8. Those will all need to be added together. So we can work with the fractions first, remembering what we did earlier in this school year and what you did in 4th grade. With your knowledge of equivalent fractions here, we know that 2/4 is equivalent to 4/8. And then we can just leave 1/8 as it is. So now if we add 4/8 plus 1/8, that would give us 5/8. And then we have 4 plus 1, which is 5. And so then we can see that 2 1/4 times 2 1/2 is equal to 5 5/8.